that wasn't perfect, but then neither am I. How y'all doing, everybody? Hey, during recent weeks and months, we've been hearing lots and lots about troubles, the trials, the tribulations that Americans face. War, failing economy, mortgage foreclosures, corruption in government, worldwide unrest. The list goes on and on. The recent presidential election was one with promises of so-called change. Change that would be born from those who came from the same old political institutions which had produced those which came before. Change from its new beginning reflected a return to the same institutions from which it came. We were led to believe that our salvation comes from government, from bureaucracy, from the very thing that led us where we are. This is as far from the truth as can be. Our Savior lays much closer than this. Just go look in a mirror. The truth is that Americans have always faced trials, faced tribulations, and likely always will. My great-grandfather Ezra was a Confederate soldier from Mississippi. He was wounded at Knoxville, shot through the mouth. He was abandoned, left behind, and rescued by a Yankee, Illinois woman who nursed him back to health. They married. They moved to the Oklahoma Indian Territories. He raised a family. He faced hard times right up into the Dust Bowl. Of his sons, one of his sons, my great-grandfather Abdul, moved to Idaho. He homesteaded, raised a family, and also faced major hardships and the Depression. One time he had to send a dollar and some change to his father Ezra to keep the local county government from confiscating his 40-acre farm for back taxes. $1 and some change. Unreal. Many of Abdul's sons went to Europe and to the Far East in World War II to fight fascism. One spent years in Nazi prisoner of war camps and barely survived. The other, my grandfather, homesteaded and raised a family and struggled through decades of lean times marked by hard labor and very few worldly possessions. The other side of the family sports the first white child born in the Idaho-Oregon territories who was raised on the frontier, braved hostile renegades, eventually married other pioneers that came in out of Oklahoma territories, pushing hand carts with all their belongings, and that man had ended up being the first National Forest Ranger in all of central Idaho, and at the same time he was on duty, she was miles away from civilization, high up in the mountains, having a baby, coming out dry, not able to nurse. She's got to go out and catch a wild range cow and milk it, beef cow, or you're talking here, not no dairy cow, that's a whole different kettle. That's just an example, a story of the kind of things that they did. These men and women face life-threatening conditions day in and day out in order to raise their families and wrestle a living in a world full of trials and tribulations. They thought nothing of it. They did not consider themselves poor, even though they were bereft of almost all worldly or material belongings. They knew they must meet the troubles that life sent their way because failure wasn't an option. They thought nothing of it, for they were Americans born of pioneer stock. They never gave a moment's thought to somebody else providing for them. They knew they were Americans, and they knew they would rise to the challenges that met them along their path. I'm telling you this because you and I are Americans too. And this means the same thing for us as it did for them. I started the Good Samaritan Network to encourage folks to help those of us that can't help themselves. I believe in that strongly. However, for the rest of us, we're Americans. We can face and triumph over any and all troubles and tribulations that we face. We always have. And inside we know that government nor any other entity is going to solve them for us. As Americans, we know we can face and meet all the challenges. It's just a matter of getting our head around it. We've always done it. And if the day ever comes when that's not true, well, that'll be the day that there will not be Americans. Anyhow, that's how I see it. PappyStu said it, and I am out and on the side.